Welcome everyone to my review of RG Sonic the Hedgehog issue 23. On today's cover, we have Sonic and Robotnik trapped together in a sealed container, courtesy of this large robotic-looking individual. Based on the background, I believe we are dealing with an alien, which means our characters are heading back into space. The characters originally left Mobius back in issue 13. Wow, a whole 10 issues earlier. The title card you saw earlier and the words in the corner don't lie. Robotnik's going to team up with the heroes against this space visitor. So without further ado, let's get started. Sonic, Sally, and Tails are in the forest looking for medical berries when suddenly Sonic stomps around the area. It turns out some ants have gotten into his shoe and they're making his feet itch. But they're no ordinary ants. They are Mobium farm ants, ones that belong to Rotor. He keeps them in an ant farm because he likes observing them. Remember this for later. They resume gathering berries, but the location they're at is right near Robotropolis, which means Robotnik catches wind of their presence. He instantly ambushes the group with a portable roboticizer. The conflict is interrupted when a giant tube from above sucks up both parties up into this giant purple square in the sky. They try to figure out who's responsible, but Robotnik would rather make a beeline towards the tube and back down to Mobius. He's quickly recaptured by the giant shiny alien from the cover. His name is Karheem of the planet Wheat. I repeat, Karheem of Wheat. Anyone hungry for porridge right now? He's here to collect different species to study them. Robotnik tries to bribe his way to freedom with a guide all about himself, because of course he has one. This causes Karheem to declare him an inferior species and he should be disposed. Sonic and Sally manage to save Robotnik's life by saying he's a member of the Freedom Fighters and that they depend on each other for survival. Robotnik plays along, and this convinces Karheem that the idea of being interdependent is worth studying. He places them in a container that's a replica of Mobius's Great Forest so that he can observe them. As Karheem goes off to get food, Sonic tries spin dashing out of the container to no avail. Some time passes, and the Freedom Fighters are working to make their new home comfortable, except for Robotnik. Sonic reminds them that Karheem is watching their every movement, and if he figures out that Robotnik's not a Freedom Fighter, well, in a panic, Robotnik is forced to take the Freedom Fighter oath, officially becoming a member, much to his chagrin. That night, Sonic and Rotor discuss how this feels like the latter's ant farm, and the only reason both Rotor and Karheem keep living beings in containers is because they're interesting. So Sonic suggests they become less interesting to their captor, in the hopes that he can open the container. Robotnik chimes in, and they start forming a plan. Robotnik will construct a vehicle for them to escape in, and while Sonic distracts Karheem, he'll operate the controls so they can fly back to Mobius. The plan kicks off with Sonic playing dead. As soon as Karheem opens the container to get rid of him, Sonic speeds into the giant's suit, making him itch like crazy. The Freedom Fighters, Robotnik, and Snively use this chance to fly out using a makeshift helicopter. They land on the nearby control panel, and since Robotnik's been observing Karheem working the controls, he knows exactly which button to push to send Karheem out of the airlock along with Sonic. Don't worry, Karheem's suit protects them from the vacuum of space. The rest of our heroes call out Robotnik for this act and revoke his Freedom Fighter status. Sally and Tails hold Robotnik long enough for Rotor to use the tube to pull Karheem and Sonic back on board. I guess Snively was too chicken to help Robotnik. Karheem thanks the Freedom Fighters for saving him and for teaching him a valuable lesson, that he shouldn't treat species other than his own as inferior. So he will begin collecting non-living things like comic books. He returns everyone to Mobius and plans to dump Robotnik and Snively into one of Robotropolis' pond of toxic slime, at Sonic's request. We end the story with Rotor taking a page from the redeemed Karheem and freed his ants, though he probably should have done it far from his friends, because they are now paying for it. The next few pages are the results of the do-it-yourself contest from issue 14. But since I talked about it in greater detail there, we'll move on to the second story. Tails is outside Antoine's house, and when Antoine asks what's wrong, Tails said he left a power ring Sonic gave him somewhere, and if he finds out, he can never be trusted to go on a mission again. Antoine agrees to go after the ring, even after Tails tells him it's in a backpack in Robotropolis. All Tails has to do is draw Antoine a map, and he can take care of the situation single-handedly. Later that night, Antoine enters Robotropolis through the sewer system. As he tries to get his bearings, one of Robotnik's patrol cars spots him without his knowledge. Before he becomes Street Pizza, a steel beam falls into the car's path and forces it over Antoine before it crashes. Still oblivious to what happened, Antoine decides to go another way because it's too noisy around here. He comes out of another manhole right near the tall building where Tails left the backpack. Antoine climbs up to get it, unaware that SWAT bots spotted him and are closing in. The ladder they're climbing breaks off, and the robots fall to their demise. Antoine's way out of the city involves him crossing a river of toxic ooze. His best chance is to crawl through a pipe that just happens to bridge the gap. Once again, Antoine's unaware that someone's coming for him. This time, it's Robotnik and Snively themselves. They plan to smash the pipe with their hovercraft, only for the pipe to move at the last minute, and the craft lands in the ooze. Making this the second time this issue, Robotnik and Snively wind up in toxic goo. With no more obstacles, Antoine returns to Knothole and gives the pack to Tails. It's pretty amazing that Antoine did all this by himself. Well, here's the thing. He was never alone. Let's go back to the beginning of the story. Bunny woke up to Tails and Antoine's conversation, and when Tails told her what Antoine was going to do, she followed him. All those last-minute saves we saw earlier, that was her doing. Antoine must have seen her after the pipe incident, because after Tails left with the ring, Antoine gives her a thank you kiss on the cheek. Daww. Ivo Robotnik Freedom Fighter has the feeling of a message story. Sometimes in children's shows, especially during the 90s, there would be episodes where the characters would learn a lesson, hoping the kids watching would also pick up on this lesson. I'm sure some earlier Sonic issues did this, but here, I think this is the most in-your-face the comic has presented this format. The message itself isn't bad, it's just a bit blunt. I think that's what Angelo was going for when he wrote this. Kareem of Wheat, seriously that name, reminds me a lot of Superman villain Brainiac in that he's a space traveler collecting things and knowledge from other worlds. In the case of the latter though, he destroys the worlds afterwards, so he can be the only one with all that stuff. I think that's his MO, I could be wrong. Kareem just wants some intergalactic pets to entertain him, and is willing to change his ways when some of these pets show decency while he's helpless. The Freedom Fighters seem to show a lot of mercy to their antagonists this story. In hindsight, perhaps they should have left Kareem to dispose of Robotnik when he had the chance. Would have saved them some headaches in future issues. But they are the good guys for a reason. Plus, Robotnik did help them escape from the container, if only for his own selfish reasons. I believe this is the second time the heroes and villains teamed up, the first time being issue 19. Final score is a 7. Message story aside, it's an alright tale that had some interesting parallels between Rotor's ant farm situation and Kareem, with the whole itching and trying to escape. I don't think those ants are happy to be on the farm, Rotor. The story also introduced the concept of aliens to the series, and it won't be the last time our characters will encounter some. And I admit, it was amusing for Robotnik to try and fail to be a freedom fighter. Antoine and Bunny took center stage for story 2. It's almost as if Angelo said, sorry for not putting these two in the first story, here they are having their own adventure. Funny enough, considering the first story followed the theme of ants and ant farms, I'm surprised they went with the title, The Vol Ant Tier. I know it's Antoine's nickname, but still. Anyway, similar to issue 10's second story, this is another case of Angelo injecting dignity into Antoine. The character is well known to be a scaredy cat, coyote, but when the chips are down and/or is willing to help out a friend, he can be counted on in a pinch. The surprising thing is Bunny following Antoine to make sure nothing happens to him. It's like she's starting to develop feelings for him or something. Actually, back in issue 20, the story where Sonic became out of phase, there's this panel of Bunny confronting a scared Antoine. I know I shouldn't read too deep into that moment, but I wonder if Angela was beginning to plant some romantic seeds here, and that in this story, they're starting to sprout. If you are familiar with future issues, it's around this time the Bunny Antoine romance laid its foundation, which will ultimately culminate into this, with some ups and downs along the way. For that, I'll give this story an 8. The only lingering thought I have is, was Tails by himself when he took the Power Ring backpack to Robotropolis, or was he with someone like Sonic? Speaking of the title character, the next issue will see the return of his alternate universe evil doppelganger, and this time, he's not alone. I'll see you in issue 24. Hey Kareem, why settle for collecting comic books when you can also collect baseball cards, or better yet, video games? Go all in on your geekdom.